The following literature reviews relate directly to the research hypotheses being tested in the remaining portions of this report, as well as give a detailed understanding of the current state and plan of Kansas state parks. My research related to the effect of continued climate change on parks. State parks find that when they have higher temperatures, there is higher attendance. And because climate change increases the temperature globally, it makes a longer, warmer season. And this has advantages to the state parks, being that they have a longer busy season where people are attending. However, there are disadvantages as well, because with the rising heat, it takes more water to water the parks, and it takes more labor when there are more attendants. And so they have to be able to balance these costs with the prices that they charge their attendants.
So my research went over the increased funding to the Kansas State Parks. The Kansas State Parks was gifted a grant of $3.5 million roughly to improve the conditions of the parks. This grant was used to increase glamping, or in other words, to renovate the parks and make them more attractive to customers who are looking to camp. These new funds stemmed from the $750 million American Rescue Plan, and this plan specifically aimed at increasing the funding for state parks as well as outdoor recreation within the United States.
My research article was about the improved management of state parks, and the state parks make a large contribution to time used for nature recreation. And the goal of this study was to estimate the contribution state parks made on nature recreation. And approximately 2 million acres of state parks were established between the years 1975 and 2007. And this resulted in 600 million hours of nature recreation annually. This research helps us provide improved management, improvements in resource allocation, and public policy decisions regarding nature recreation resources.
So one of the advantages discussed earlier was longer busy season, and this was partially done because of the effects of COVID-19. So due to COVID-19's restrictions on indoor activities and public spaces, the outdoors has taken over in terms of entertainment for people's day-to-day life, and from a variety of demographics, whether that be age, gender, race, whatever it may be. And the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks shifted their marketing to various subgroups in this time as well, based on the season in the park. So for example, Crawford State Park is open year-round for families and couples, but those with large families must obtain a permit to enjoy during the summer. So the use of permits, due to the high demand of outdoor spaces, some parks require the use of a permit to maintain limits to the area, but also keep account how many people are in the park at a time. That may be permits for fishing or whatever. So higher demand for permits has also seen a surge of the population and is taking initiative to acquire one, therefore creating an influx of people going to these parks.
Our research question was, what parks are most popular with visitors? And is this because of a particular type of activity available at this park, or is it the attractiveness to the uniqueness of the park itself? Our research question was trying to answer what parks are most popular with visitors and for what reason. This is to be done in order to establish a basis of what we should build our future parks to or change our current parks to incorporate. From these results, our Kansas State Parks will be able to increase visitors, increase sales, expand their understanding of current processes, and identify how to grow at a faster rate. The variables that we need to consider were the park ID, and we did this in order to find the totals in our analysis, the activities such as camping, the history and advertising, the experience, which was health, nature, de-stress, quality of life, family, and other, nights, gender, and year born.
Used a total of 6 questions to operationalize the research questions. What is the typical number of nights you spent on these trips to Kansas State Parks? In what year were you born? Please indicate your gender. Which of the following activities did you engage in at this Kansas State Park, specifically for camping? Please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statements. The state park that I visited is a place with history, and the state park that I visited is a state park that is described honestly in advertising, and people may obtain different personal benefits from visiting a state park. To what extent does each of the following describe your experiences in this trip? Improved health, obtained a greater appreciation of nature, de-stressed, improved quality of life, spent time with family, and any other experience. The following hypotheses were researched. We hypothesized that more than 50% of the population visits state parks to camp. We hypothesized that spending multiple nights at the state parks increases the potential of a better experience at the park, and we hypothesize that people like a park with history more than one that is described honestly. The population of interest included all individuals who had recently visited a state park within the last 12 months. The survey was administered online to their emails, and errors such as the following occurred: under coverage, non-response, lack of interest in the survey, or incorrect values were reported, and poor memory regarding the most recent park experience.
Our descriptive statistics included percentage of male visitors, which was found by taking 2,246 male visitors and dividing by the total, 4,231, equaling 43.08% total male visitors at the park. The percentage of female visitors was found 1,942 out of 4,231, equaling 45.9% of female visitors at the park. And the percentage of other identified genders were 43 out of 4,231, equaling 1.02% of visitors at the park, which is also shown in a pie graph to the right. The average age of visitors was 54 years old, and the average number of nights spent on a trip was 4 nights.
I use this survey the most. The spread was really large as the percentages are really close together, but the top visited park was Wilson with 8.284%. The second was Hillsdale with 8.233%, and El Dorado with 8.114%. And then for the survey totals, we used the last question of the survey to find the total number of complete responses was 4,182, with 1,196 left blank.
So the following table is a recap of the previous slide of descriptive statistics. However, we use the standard deviation and the standard error to find our confidence intervals for our continuous variables. So we found that the confidence interval low and high for age was 53.59 and 54.41, and for average nights spent was 3.66 and 4.34. We also found the average means for all of our categorical variables as well.
Our first hypothesis was more than 50% of the population visit state parks to camp. Our sample size was visitors to state park equaling 5,879, and our visitors that camped at a state park, which were 5,110. So even from those numbers, it is obvious that it is a high percentage. The statistical test being used was a one-sample t-test. The hypothesized value testing against was 50% or 2,940 visitors. The actual observed percentage in sample is 90.14%. The p-value was 0, and the hypothesis was supported. See Appendix 1. And that shows our findings.
So our bivariate hypothesis and hypothesis 2 was spending multiple nights at state parks increases the potential of a better experience of the park. So our sample size used was also 5,879. People who spent multiple nights at the park, which was greater than 1 night, was 3,350 or 3,355 people, and people who rated their overall experience as ideal, which was rated as a 7, 1,452 people. So we used a correlation test with counted functions in order to find this. And the observed values was the correlation value was positive at 0.013236, which is less than 0.3. And we also had a 0 p-value. The relationship was positive, which matches the hypothesis. However, the correlation strength was low, therefore it is not supported. And you can see this in Appendix 2.
So the third hypothesis was conducted, people like a park with history more than one that is described honestly in advertising. And the test we used for this hypothesis was the within groups t-test, and the total sample size was 4,422. Some had to be removed due to non-response error, and the value testing equals 0. After running the test, we were able to discover the results. The mean for history is 5.36, while advertising has a mean of 5.73. And the p-value is 1.8 to the negative 75th power. And we determined that the hypothesis was not supported because the results displayed the opposite. On average, people enjoy parks more than when the advertisement is honest. And you can see the test results in Appendix 3.
These graphs help exemplify that data that for history, the responses were a lot more spread, and for Advertising, they were much more concentrated on the high end. And that explains why their means are numerically very similar, but advertising is significantly higher.
In conclusion, hypothesis 1 states that more than 50% of the population visits state parks to camp. Because of this, state parks should use this to advertise camping sites to attract visitors. Hypothesis 2 states that spending multiple nights at a park does not influence a better overall experience. The park should not associate the two variables, and they should figure out what affects a better personal experience to help attract new and old customers. The last hypothesis concludes that people prefer a park that is advertised honestly. Because of this, the park should work on advertising honestly and work to relate to new and old customers.
Overall, parks that have more and nicer camping grounds, fun activities, as well as making sure to advertise to customers with transparency and knowing what to expect are more popular with the sample population. Some of the limitations that we found could arise from the survey data collection, as well as the report execution, include the following: the total number of respondents sampled not matching the intended population, the lack of time to carry out successful data collection, and the lack of funding regarding the efficiency of the survey. All three of these limitations can also lead to an increase in sampling and coverage error within data collection.
And there we're excited.